Hi, here are some techniques for installing tubing for rackets with worn or broken grommets. Alright, let's get started. Here are a couple of grommets that are broken. You can check that by using an awl, and on this one it's actually broken through where if you run the awl is rubbing right onto the frame. And on the second one, similarly, it's not cracked like this one, but it's actually worn to the point where you can feel the frame protruding into the grommet. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace the first one, but this first one, it's not a tie-off hole, so it's small and it's not big enough for a nylon tubing to fit in it. A Teflon tubing, which is thinner, can't quite fit in there either. It's going to be a very tight fit, and on the Teflon tubing it's very pliable, so it's kind of hard to force it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a technique where I'm going to splice the nylon tubing in half. So I'm going to cut a length that's about a 1/2 inch in length. So I have the tubing here, and what I'm gonna do is smash it down. So I have a pair of parallel jaw pliers and just make it nice and flat. And basically what I'm gonna do is cut this in half and use just half of the tubing, and because it's only half a tubing, it'll fit into that hole that I'm trying to get this to protect. Now, as far as the cutting pliers, it's best if you use a flush cutting pliers versus something like a bypass, which acts like a scissors. Normally I use the bypass cutting pliers on my string jobs, but in this case, for cutting this, you want something that has a flush cut. So you want to just try and get that cutting pliers right in the middle of the tubing. I can bring this up closer, so I have it like right there in the middle of the tubing, and I'm gonna try and cut this right in half. And if your pliers are sharp, they should go right through. All right, so it'll look like this. It's two halves but you're only gonna use one half of the tubing. All right, so I'm gonna pass this string through the hole, and I'm gonna get this tubing, put it onto the string on the side of the string that the string is passing through the grommet, where it's gonna go into that cracked area. And before I pull tension on it, I want to make sure that I bring that tubing down pretty close to the tip of the grommet. So I'm gonna use bend those pliers, push it down. I can get it to about that far, so I can't really push it down anymore. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my cutting pliers and just really trim it off. Make sure you're not cutting the string, so I'm bending the string away from it, and I'm gonna cut it off. So it might be about a 1/16 of an inch that's really left sticking out. So you have a little piece that's sticking out past the grommet. So it's right there. It might be hard to see in the video, but that's where it is right now. All right, so I'm gonna tension the string, and I need to make sure that that tubing stays in place. So as the tension is being pulled back, I'm gonna actually press down in this area to make sure that that spliced tubing doesn't rotate, because sometimes that can happen. So I'm just gonna keep it in place. And yep, it's right on that side of the frame, so that's good. I'm also going to be writing an article on this, so I'll post some pictures in a link below, and you can take a look at a close-up picture on that. Right now I can't move the camera. So on this next hole, it's actually a tie-off hole, so I'm going to set that up and try and get the camera a little bit closer so you can see that from a different angle. On the second grommet, it's the one that's broken because it was used as a tie-off hole, and I'm gonna insert the nylon tubing into the hole, and you might not be able to see it from this angle, but I'm gonna make sure that it's sticking out about a 1/16 of an inch or so. And because it's coming from this string into the tubing, I'm gonna bend the tubing over to that string, and I'm gonna cut it right where that string is coming out through the hole, but I'm gonna angle it so that it, well, I'll show you later why it's gonna be angled. So basically I measured it where I need to cut it. I'm cutting this at an angle right there. And it's just gonna be a lot cleaner with it being angled, and with this edge being like this, when you run your finger over it, it won't get caught. If you cut it straight at a 90 degree, it'll tend to be, it'll leave an edge that can tend to get caught and things. So it's just a cleaner look. And so what you're gonna do is pass the string through the tubing. And the main thing is that when you tension the string, you want to make sure that you bend the tubing so that that tip is lying flat onto the grommet strip. So it's going to leave a nice angled cut that's not going to be sticking out. So I'm going to go ahead and tension this string, and then I'm going to try and drop the camera down so you can see what that looks like. And again, I'm holding the tubing in place so that it doesn't move. All right, so there it is. There's a nice clean cut right there. If you cut it again at a 90 degree, if you run your finger over there, it'll feel like, you know, there's a bump there, but now it just feels nice and smooth. Gives it a finished look. All right, here's the finished product. I'm done stringing the racket. I'll show you up close what those areas look like. On that first tubing that I spliced, it was the one located right here. So if you can see that, there's the half tubing, and the one right above it is the whole tubing. And the outside of that is, you can see that angled cut there. It gives it a nice smooth finish right over there. The reason why I bend it over to the next hole is to help anchor that tubing in place. With the splice tubing, you just basically are relying on the string that's passing over the frame and holding it in place there. I actually had to do one on the other side too, so I have one located over here. All right, hopefully that helps. I actually have another tip on tubing in my article, so if you go down below and press on the link, you'll see how I use the tubing on a Prince 03 racket that was missing the throat piece. Here I have another racket. Well, I'll demonstrate how to install tubing when you have a hole that you need to tube that's also a tie-off hole. So this will be the hole that we're going to be working on right here. And what I'm going to do is prep that hole first by not only enlarging it, but lubricating it so it's a lot easier to slide the string through once you get the tubing in there. So I have a chapstick that you're going to stick your awl into. It works as a good lubricant. And you want to just make sure you get it high enough on your awl, because you know you want to stick it into the hole where it's going to actually be coating the wall of the grommet. Now you have to watch out that when you poke your awl through there, that it's not going to poke the string there, the main string that's right there. So just make sure that you're not poking right into that. So as I'm placing the awl into the hole, I'm just also rotating it and just really making sure that you're kind of enlarging it a little bit, but also lubricating the walls of that grommet. All right, so I got that in there. What I'm gonna do is I have a piece of tubing that I already cut, but basically what you want to do is get your nylon tubing, or it could be Teflon. And what I did is I stuck it into the hole that you want to have it, that you need to tube. And you're gonna have about 1/4 of an inch sticking out of the hole. And then you're gonna bend it over and then cut it at an angle like I did previously, so that it'll look something like this. It's an angled cut that's on that side. And that tip of that angled cut will be lying flat on the grommet. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and tension the string. And this next one is where the tubing is going to be placed. So I just want to make sure that when I get the tubing in there, that it's going to be sticking out 1/4 of an inch from that grommet. and at the same time making sure that that angled cut, the tip is actually lying flat on the grommet strip itself. So you might have to rotate the tubing around. If that's the case, you can use a your bent nose pliers. Just make sure the angle is correct where the tip is lying flat. You want to make sure the tubing is sticking out about 1/4 inch. And once you get those two things lined up, then you can go ahead and tension your string. So I'm going to hold it in place as the string is being tensioned, just to make sure that everything stays the way you want it to be. So I'm going to tension it. You got about 1/4 inch sticking out. You got the tip on this side, lying flat on the grommet strip. All right, so that's the second to the last main. I'm going to go ahead and pull the last main here, and then we're going to tie off on that tubing. All right, so you already created the hole. I mean, you enlarged it a little bit and you lubricated it, but you're gonna probably have to create a little passageway for that string to go through. I mean, I can try and push it through now, but I got a feeling it's probably not gonna go through there. So yeah, oh, it did go through. But let's say if it didn't go through, right now you can see that it's right through there. But let's say if it was so tight that it couldn't go through. So what I would do is just make sure you lubricate your awl again. You want to get that tip there with your chapstick, and you want to look into this hole that has the tubing, and you want to see if there's more space on the top of the string or below the string. And in this case, when I'm looking through this hole, I can see more space at the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my awl through, but at the same time angle my awl upwards so that it's not poking into the string. So you need to be very careful at this point, but you have your awl that's lubricated and you're really making sure that you go very slowly. So I'm gonna also rotate my awl as I'm going in. So I'm rotating my awl, I'm angling my awl upwards, and you can see the gold tip. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there. It's starting to appear right there. So I'm creating a passageway for this tie-off string to go through. So again, it could go through by itself, but I just wanted to demonstrate in case it didn't. So what you're gonna do is you can hold the tip of the string, leaving maybe about 1/2 inch at the tip. And as you rotate the awl outwards, what you're gonna do is just replace the string into that hole if you can, as quickly as possible. So I'm rotating the awl and I'm also taking it out, and then you're gonna just push the string right in there. So it came right through there. All right, so there it is. And what you're gonna do is you do your tie-off knot right on top of that tubing. Doesn't matter what kind of knot, whatever knot you prefer to use. And there it is. So it's right on top of the tubing. Basically you want to just make sure that the tubing is not too long where the cross string is going to touch that tubing. So in this case I cut it kind of close, but it's right there at the edge. I probably could have cut it a little bit shorter. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll include some pictures so you can see what that looks like. But that's what it'll look like if you're tubing a tie-off hole. Also, I did want to mention, if you're interested in getting more stringing tips or you're passionate about racket stringing, check out the International Alliance of Racket Technicians. As a proud member and as one of the global ambassadors, we learn and share ideas, and I post some of these videos and articles on their website. Also, if you're interested in becoming a USRSA certified stringer or master racket technician, I have the links below and you can check that out there. All right, thanks for watching and happy stringing.